comes around here. I'm going to cover this in a later video because I've only just really got this and I'm just sort of working out how to use this in conjunction with Home Assistant for automation as well. So what better time to cover off Solar Assistant with the next named storm about to hit the UK, and that's Storm Isha. So that'll give you an idea of when I'm filming this. So as you can see, I've got the box now, which is similar to the one that you can actually buy the whole kit from on the Solar Assistant website. So if you want to buy the whole thing, I think it's about $180. So it comes preloaded with everything you need just to plug and play. So there's the old box that I 3D printed just to keep it until this one arrived. I've got the lid off at the moment. It comes with a little lid as well. I've got that off at the moment just to give it some air. I'm going to see how that fares when things get a bit warmer. So in terms of the hardware I've got, you can probably see this little antenna poking out because I'm using Wi-Fi. I'm not directly plugging this into an Ethernet port. And as you can see at the moment, the light's on. So in hardware terms, I bought the Orange Pi 3 separately. I'll put all the links in the description as well, just to give you an idea of the costs of all this. So to make this work for this particular setup, obviously I've got the EASUN 48 volt inverter, which I've covered in the previous video. And I've also got the Apexium sort of battery here, the 15 kilowatt hour battery made up of 280 amp hour cells. And I've got two cables connected into the USB ports here. So I've got one here that connects straight into the COM port where the Wi-Fi dongle used to plug. So finding that cable was a little bit tricky, but I managed to get one out at a reasonable cost. And you can, I think, get these also on the Solar Assistant website. And the other cable that hooks up to the RS485 port, or one of the ports on the front there. I'm hoping you can see it's a bit dark with the clouds coming over. That I actually just made a different cable up. I just cut a standard straight through Ethernet cable there and connected it up to an adapter. So that works specifically with this Apexium build or the BMS in there. And this is obviously a Seplos copy, if you like, or rebranded, should I say. So in hardware terms, it's really as simple as that. And the other thing that I've got on this as well is I'm actually powering it using a USB-C connector here. So I don't know whether that's going to get in focus. Let's see if we can get that in focus. And that USB connector there basically plugs in right down here to, I think that's an old Amazon Fire Stick plug there. So that just converts it and gives a 5 volt output, because again, this uses very little energy. So that's really the setup, is as basic as that, and configuring it is also pretty basic as well. But I'll let you know the cost of the bits and pieces that I bought and where I got them from in the description. And I'll put something up on screen later on just to give you an idea of the costs for me to do this, well, get each individual component together instead of just buying the setup directly from the Solar Assistant website and waiting for that to be delivered. So I'm going to go through now and just show you all the bits and pieces that come with the app, how you can access it and all the information that it gives you, and whether it is a better option if you want to pay a little bit more than the Wi-Fi dongle. Right, I'm in the app now, and typical, the inverter fan has just kicked in because it's got a bit of load on just to cool it down, but we'll go through this anyway. So this is the Solar Assistant app, or the first page that you get when you're in the app itself. So you can install it obviously on mobile devices. You can even install it on Windows PCs, or actually my laptop, I use the Solar Assistant on there as well. And it's much better for looking at graphs and things. So I'm just going to quickly run through the app now. And the setup itself with the Orange Pi 3 was a piece of cake as well. The documentation on the Solar Assistant website is great. It really was as easy to set up as I was hoping for, really. So here we have the primary screen. So this is like the Solar Assistant dashboard. And on there you've got inverter, solar PV, grid and battery. And as you can see at the moment, the grid is not showing anything because I'm using a, if you like, a smart plug to connect up and then effectively import or charge the battery when my grid energy is cheap, because I'm on the Octopus, or if I can say it correctly, Octopus Agile tariff, so that when I can get the cheapest rate, really all I do is effectively just get it to set up on the half-hour windows, however many of those are, and it charges at cheap rate, because obviously solar's not been very reliable, especially over December in the UK. So when it comes to the inverter, you can just basically just click on the inverter and it gives you some really good information straight off the bat. So the high level stuff, you can pretty much change and see things in there that you would do via the Wi-Fi dongle. It actually stops your needing to use the front screen on the inverter itself. But as you can see at the moment, there are various bits on there. You could even change things, so I can change the kind of device mode that this is actually being used in as well, and obviously the inverter needs to support that, and this is made possible by that cable that I showed you earlier that connects into the COM port on the EASUN 48 volt inverter itself. So you get some information there, and as well at the moment you can see that the battery details on there are just at the voltage level, because obviously I've not got it correctly or connected directly to the inverter. It's just connected separately, so Solar Assistant sees the battery information via the other cable that I pointed out earlier. I'll just point it out on the video there. So that's the cable that I used to connect directly to the BMS on the battery, so I actually get really rich battery information. So that's why on this particular screen it's only showing the voltage, which is what it would be doing before, because again I can't connect the battery directly to this inverter. So if we click back on dashboard there, solar PV on there is just basically telling you the amount that's come in for D, which is the day, and as you can see it's been a pretty dismal day today, and for the week so far it's 12 kilowatt hours worth of PV. So for January in the UK, bearing in mind what December was like, that's pretty good. That's non-clickable, the solar PV one. And the other one that you can click on as well is the battery. So you click on that and it gives you all the information directly from the BMS, which is the cable that I was pointing out. So this gives you the high level stuff on here that you can have a look at. It's not, you can scroll down as well and you can actually see state of charge, and you can hold over each of those particular things just to see the information if you want to in a pop-up. But again, it shows you the power at the moment, so it's just draining slightly at 59 watts. State of charge is just over, well, it's up 80.5%. Current voltage as well, and obviously the pack temperature as well. So that gives you the information on there. So we can click back on dashboard. So that's really the dashboard on the top icons there, and the following icons on there, or the sort of gauges there, tell you load, obviously solar PV, grid, watts, and again that only really pipes up when I switch the smart plug on, and also how much is being drained out the battery currently. And what I like about this is it's virtually real time, so I get a really good idea of what's going on. So coming back to the current graphs that are on screen, there are only 3 shown on here, which I think is probably enough for this summary section. So the overview there is broken down by, obviously the blue lines are load, so when I've boiled the kettle, run my coffee machine, or I think earlier during today, I think that was actually a washing machine run. So I'm highlighting on the screen at the moment. Yes, I think that was actually me running the washing machine. So that's that. You've also got on there grid usage as well. So I'll click off of that so that you can actually see the overview again. So you can see the grid power there, and last night the rate was low enough, so I actually used half-hour time periods there to actually charge at, I think it was just over 2 kilowatts. So yeah, we got grid power 2.29 kilowatts. So actually to try and charge a battery on cheaper electricity overnight. And if I click back there as well, and as you can probably see, PV's been pretty dire today. Next one down is battery power, and obviously battery power you can see on there where the battery is actually taking power directly in. So you can see the grid charge there overnight, and you can also see the drain. Again, it's almost like the inverse of the top overview, and you can see where I used the washing machine to actually do some washing earlier today. And at the bottom, as you can probably see, if I click on that, that's it, click off of that, let's click on another one. So you've got the battery state of charge, and again this is getting it directly from the BMS, and again it's all clickable. You can click along the lines and show you what it is at what time of day or night that is. So that's the first dashboard covered. So now let's click on to the next one, which is the graph. So it's got very rich graphing. I think this is powered by Grafana, as it just showed you on screen. So this one's fully selectable now. So again, you've got the overview and you've got the ones that were on the overview page. So you've got PV voltage there. Again, as you can imagine, the times of day there where voltage would be, even if it's not sunny's come up. You've got battery voltage as well. And as you can see where it was charging overnight, got up to a nice level there because it's a 48-volt battery. PV current as well. So that's any kind of current that's come in and been pretty bad day today. Battery current, again, it's pretty much mirroring the power one because obviously voltage times current equals power. PV power again is pretty bad, so that'll just update now. And this also, the good thing about this is this works not only on the local Wi-Fi, which I'm connected to at the moment, but it also works via the cloud, so you can actually access this anywhere you want. Battery temperature, as you imagine, as it's charging, and it was charging over 2 kilowatts, has gone up. AC voltage output changed, obviously, because I was connecting the grid at that time, so it pushed up the 230, which normally comes out when connected just to the battery or with battery and solar. So it pushed it up to what the grid voltage was out of the output. Inverter temperature, as you can imagine, is when the fan kicks in, which it did at the start of this piece, the inverter temperature will go down because obviously it's cooling it directly. And grid voltage there as well, it's gone from nothing because effectively I switched on using the smart plug, and I'll show you that automation, that quick automation later on in the video. Grid frequency is obviously what the grid runs at, so it's 50 Hertz here in the UK, and you can hear the fan kicking back in now, cooling that down. Load power again is what you would imagine it would be. Again, you can see where I did the washing earlier today. I'll just hold over that. And bus voltage again is just the voltage that's running inside the inverter, and that's really it for those charts on there. So the good thing about these charts as well is what you can do is you can actually just change them to a period of time. So you can actually scroll all the way back. You've got quick range dates there as well. I mean, it's so rich and so easy to use, it's not even funny. So you can pretty much choose all you like. You can pan in, pan out, the whole ball of wax. So if we was to go on here, click on that, and then I can basically just click on there and it changes the time period. I can go through the overview. We've got a view on there and everything. You've got so many options. You can refresh the view. You've got kiosk mode as well. I mean, that might be better to have a look on the website for the details on that. But I mean, this is so feature rich and easy to use. It's just, for me, it's been a game changer. So if we select the next one on, so this is like a 30-day roll-up as well, which again, you can just have a look to see, and you can see PV, obviously, this time of year has been pretty bad. I've also been messing around with the settings and connections over that period of time. So we've got last 30 days here as well. We've got a whole grid table, which is actually quite easy to use, and I like the reference point on that. And it actually works better in landscape. I'll try and flip the phone in a minute and see if that works. So that's for the last 30 days, and I connected the battery before I managed to connect the inverter, so you can see some battery information there, but no inverter information. And last 52 weeks, obviously, because I've not been using it that long, and a nice monthly summary there, and that gives some really good information on there. So obviously I can't export anything to the grid, but that gives you a good rundown of what you've been using, where your power's been coming from, and how you've been using it. Obviously, you can see the battery charged and discharged. There will be certain losses involved in that process, especially when using grid energy to charge it. So I'm going to flip the phone over now and see if that actually works. Yes, that's worked. It's still recording. Let's see if that freshens itself up. There we go. So you can see that the looking at the load table is actually a lot easier when it's in landscape mode, and again, depending on the mobile device you've got, whether you're using it on a tablet or whatever you're using it on, it just gives you that breakdown. It's easier to view in a table format. So I'm going to flip back now. So let's go to the next one. So next one actually allows you to start changing what you like on the inverter itself. So here I can actually change the priority without, you know, getting involved with anything else, and going to the front panel. So I can do utility first, solar battery utility. So they're the options that I can select, and then just press the activate button, which you can see there. The other thing as well is you can obviously do it as maintaining the battery's state of charge as well, and that pretty much speaks for itself. So the first one is switch utility below 30%, switch utility below 70% at that time as well. And again, those really speak for themselves. And again, you just have to activate it once. I'm not using that at the moment because I'm still trying to figure out how it works best. And you've obviously got a battery shutdown protection element in there. So the final one on here, the app, wherever you're using the app, whether it's on a mobile device or your laptop, has my details. So some of the details will be obscured on here for obvious reasons. So each of these orange pies are really set up specifically for just one setup. So from what I can understand, you're effectively buying that perpetual license or paying that license as part of whether you buy the whole package or whether you buy the software itself, just for that particular inverter and battery setup. And again, whether you've got multiple inverters connecting in parallel, multiple batteries or whatever your setup is, just for that one site, which I think is amazing value anyway. But again, the more I get into this and the more I look, the better it will be. So I've obviously got a site owner detail at the top of site ID, so that's so I can access it directly from a website address anywhere in the world. So that's really, really handy. And again, you've got that access forever, as long as because you've paid that license. There's no renewal, it's just a license for good, as long as Solar Assistant is around. Obviously my Wi-Fi network is the way I'm using it or connecting it up, and again I've hidden some of the details on there. So if we just move down to the next part, which is the inverter. So this is where the cables come in, getting the cables right as well. So the model inverter I've got is one of those on that list, or it's got an etc there. So it's usually have the same pin layouts on their COM port. So I'm going to try this on, I'm assuming this will work on the 24 volt version as well as the MPP 24 volt version I've got, and any other kind of off-grid type of inverters that I get or connect up. And you can see where it's connected via the USB ports as well on there, and they're both down there as connected. So the battery and the inverter are separate to give me more rich information, and it tells you how they're connected as well. And you can go into the advanced and actually look at the setup as well. So I mean, you've got to disconnect on the config page and then reconnect to make the changes apply. But you can see here I've only basically set my max grid powers and stuff in there, state of charge, and it also assumes that most of these off-grid inverters are Voltronic inverters. And again, you've got so much you can set from the app itself without even getting involved in anything else. And I'm not set the battery capacity because I'm not doing that from the inverter. I'm doing it directly from the battery BMS. So that's the configuration page. Again, you can connect and disconnect on that. So let's move down to the system details. So as you would expect, it's got the current time temperature of the CPU, which is in the orange pie itself. I got a little sort of a micro SD card, because that's what this particular orange pie takes. And they're so cheap anyway, and that stores a lot of the information locally, hence the reason you can get really, really good detailed information over many years to come. So I bought a 64 gig, I think it was, card, and again I'll put the price, which was some ridiculous price as well because they're so cheap now. And also at the bottom as well, to enable me to basically get information out of this particular instance, I use the MQTT broker, which allows me to send information over and do automations with Home Assistant, which I'll give you a quick show of that, what I'm using it for, charging from the grid when cheaper energy is available to me. But that in the nutshell is really the app, the layout. The setup again is really just following exactly what's on the site, on the Solar Assistant site. And I think for value for money and a perpetual license to just basically use this forever on one instance. And again, I'm assuming if you change inverter or set up to something else, it purely calls it a site. So that should be that. So that's a quick rundown, and I'll show you what it looks like on my laptop. Right, here we are in my laptop now. So as you can see, it's the same as it was on my mobile device, as in my mobile phone. and you've got all the same information on the overview pages that you had on there. I suppose the easiest thing about this is the fact that it's a bigger screen. You can actually, it's easier to select things. So if I wanted to drill down on the overview page and look at my grid usage overnight, I just hold down the left mouse button and drag it over that. And then what that does, that gives me a zoomed in view, if you like, of the grid power that I use. So the grid power overnight, where the my automation kicked in and actually started to charge the battery up using cheaper energy from overnight. So I think it was under 10p for these periods, 10 pence, should I say, per kilowatt hour overnight. So that charged my battery up quite nicely. And because it's on half hours, so there was 2 half-hour slots there that worked well, 1 half hour there, and then it looks like another 2 half-hour slots to make an hour slot, and then another half-hour slot there where the price dipped down. And I will show you quickly the basic or the rudimentary thing that I'm working on Home Assistant at the moment, which is working quite well at the moment for doing just this, where solar's not really living up to what I need it to at the moment, as for most people could probably attest to in the UK as it stands at the moment. So all the other configuration panels on here are what you expect. One thing I didn't show you when I was going through, and again, this is much easier to view on here in terms of all the graphs that you've got. Very nice to see on a much bigger display. And again, this would probably work well on a tablet as well. But I've not got it set up on there, and it's easier just to basically just select periods as well, using sort of the Grafana engine and go back like 90 days. And then, you know, that would, because obviously I've not had it very long. And then again, you can just drag it over something. And then what that does is it takes you in, and you can continue to drill in there to look exactly to see how much is in there, which I think is really powerful. And that updates the charts as well and shows you all the other information that you know. It's so feature rich. I can't believe it's so cheap, to be honest with this particular software. All the other things remain the same in the configuration panel. But one thing I didn't show you in the app was under the power section here, where you can just do the basics and then activate whatever you need to activate. If you actually click on the inverter here, and you can actually click on utility first, it actually gives you the configuration of the inverter. So this is the really powerful stuff where you can actually change it almost instantly from wherever you are, as long as you've got a connection, you know, a connection in the world. So this basically gives you all the information, and I actually prefer this to the Wi-Fi dongle software, because this is so much easier to navigate. So on here it gives you obviously the specification on here, and so it's the 6.2 is the max AC output power. It gives you all the details there about the machine itself. So I couldn't actually sum this up better than taking a photograph from the manual, or actually the label that's on the side. You've got battery settings on here. Again, these, if you sort of hold over the top, it tells you what the charging priority is. So at the moment, solar and utility simultaneously. User type, because I've got my battery set up as a standard lithium iron phosphate battery. And again, you've got other BMSs in here that you can select. So it's just using me as a user battery type, because I'm using the BMS that comes with the Apexium. So obviously the Seplos rebranded one. So I've got my key voltages that I've got set up, and again, these are still a work in progress really, and what my current grid max charge voltage is. And obviously my max current is 50 amps on this. I don't want to go any higher than that at the moment, although the battery itself can take a lot more. And you can actually just go in here, click the edit button, and it really is as easy as that, and just save it, and it sends it back using the comms port on the inverter, sorry, on the battery itself. And then the inverter one, which is down here, which is all these. If I wanted to edit these as well, I can actually edit them directly from the app as well. So I think this is so powerful and so easy to use, easier than any of the software that comes with the inverters that I've used. So I think that's Watch Power and the other inverter software that comes with the EASUN inverters. But you literally just click on those, and then you can change all of those, and then just save it, and it will send it back in the inverter, in this case via the USB cable that's connected to the COM port. I'm not entirely sure about this editing the solar PV settings, but again, I think this is an additional thing that I can't actually find on the front panel unless I've missed it in one of the other menus or sub menus. But again, you can pretty much change it. You've got parallel inputs, you've got anything you can use on there. I'm using this as appliance at the moment, not as UPS. Output voltage, and I can change anything, make those changes, and then just press the save button. So really powerful stuff, and I can do all this also from my mobile phone pretty much anywhere on the planet. So that's a quick rundown there of what it looks like on a laptop, but as you agree, it's visually very easy to use, intuitive, and it basically gives you anything that you need, and you can actually look back at all that data. And because it's stored locally on that little micro SD card, you're basically going to have rich data going way back for many years, so you can really do some decent comparisons on that. So that's a quick tour really of the desktop or laptop view. So one other thing I just wanted to quickly show you was a little sort of basic automation that I set up using the MQTT broker setup, where effectively Solar Assistant and Home Assistant can talk to each other. So I just made this really basic dashboard up with different sort of inputs that come from different areas. So the solar power, load and grid come from the inverter, so that gets that information in Home Assistant from Solar Assistant, and the battery obviously comes as well from Solar Assistant, and you can basically click on any of these. So for solar power, you can see just the solar power for today, and that's what Solar Assistant has collected. When you go to load, obviously shows the load again, which is similar to what was shown in the Solar Assistant graphs I showed you within the app and on the laptop as well. And grid as well, as you can see, shows the amount of power that's come in when I switched on the smart plug to do the battery charging during the cheap rates overnight. And battery again finds the information directly from the BMS via obviously Solar Assistant, so you can see the history and what state the battery is in as well. So that's an accurate state of charge indicator. The next one's down are really bits that I've incorporated using Home Assistant. So the 48 volt system is actually the smart plug control, so that actually tells me whether the plug's on or off. So if I was to click that now, it would switch the plug on whatever rate was currently being given to me in half-hour chunks from Octopus as on their Agile tariff, which is what I'm currently on. And as just below that, you can actually see the current rate is being displayed. It might be a bit small and I need to mess around with these tiles at some point, but it's currently at just over 30 pence per kilowatt hour, because obviously we're in peak time now, so it gets a little bit expensive off the flat rate. The next one down, charging rate. So this is what I've set up as part of this automation, so that overnight it looked for anything that was less than 9.71 pence per kilowatt hour. So I set that, and again that's just me setting a rate. I set that 20 hours ago once I knew the rates, what the rates were going to be sort of overnight and into today. So I set it at that. So anytime the rate dipped below 9.71 pence per kilowatt hour, it switched the plug on. It switched the 48 volt system plug on. And the grid power below is something else I'm working on at the moment, trying to get almost instantaneous information directly from my smart meter since I had it installed on the 3rd of January 24. And that updates a lot quicker than waiting for things to go directly to the cloud. So I'm also using a method to get this information directly from my smart meter a lot faster than it would do if I had to wait for the internet or the cloud service. As you can see, it's just updated 1 second ago. So I get this information pretty quick now, and that's also stored in Home Assistant. So I've got a good idea of how much actual energy I'm using directly from my smart meter, as pretty close to real time as possible. But I just thought I'd show you that quick, pretty basic automation just to give me an idea how I basically set this up so that I can charge when solar's not doing its thing and taking advantage of cheap overnight or during the day energy. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you do have any comments, questions or suggestions, please pop them in the section below and I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Dad Vinci.